Last year, I spent $100 on this Google speaker, but then I realized it spent most of that time sitting on the kitchen counter collecting dust. I can't remember clearly the last time I used it. When I brought it here to show it to you, it wasn't even plugged in. I'm sure you can easily find a bunch of stuff like this lying around in your place, just collecting dust not being used. No matter what it is you find, no matter what it costs, this is the consequence of what's called impulse buying, a term that is very well known to the marketing industry. And it is by far the most common bad spending habit, but it can be a bit challenging to identify when it's happening. We saw that it's much easier to identify an impulse purchase in hindsight, after the fact. So the question is, how do we stop it from happening in the first place? Before we can answer that question, we need to get a bit into marketing strategies. There are two marketing strategies we can closely relate to impulse buying: scarcity and anchoring. When you're shopping, whether it's online or at a physical store, you've come across words like limited time, limited edition, now, today, last chance, or while supplies last. You often see the inventory left for online products, and somehow they're always low on stock or just one remaining. All those fall under the marketing tactic of scarcity. It plays on the principle where we tend to give higher value to rare things. When we see a sale about to end, a product that has 2 items left in inventory, we feel the urge to make a decision quickly by fear of missing out, fear of regret. The moment this feeling of urgency gets into our mind, it becomes really difficult to think rationally. Luckily, there are several ways to avoid falling into this mindset. The first one is planning what you want to buy before shopping for it, and actually sticking with it. I personally started using this method for my weekly grocery shopping. I have a whiteboard on my fridge that I write on during the whole week. Every time I'm getting food from the fridge or the kitchen, I check if I'm running out of something. When it happens, I simply write it on the board. Then, just before heading out to the grocery store, I take a picture of the board and I use it as my shopping list. I only allow myself to buy things that are on the list. Following this, I had 2 very positive results. Only buying the things that I actually need and reducing my monthly spending on groceries by about 10 to 15%, while also minimizing food waste. This method works really well for stuff that you buy frequently, because you know exactly what you need. But what if you're making a one-time purchase of something you never bought? You can use the 24-hour rule. This rule simply says you have to wait 24 hours after your first impulse to buy before committing to buying. Let's say you suddenly want to get an electric scooter after talking with your colleague who uses it every day to go to work. You go back home, and first thing you do, you get on your computer and find this awesome discounted limited time special offer model that looks even better than the one your colleague has. Don't buy it yet. Sleep on it and wait until the next morning, and only commit to the purchase if you still feel like it's worth your money. It might look trivial, but you can use this time to compare it with other products. Think about alternatives and check if it does fit in your budget. This will allow you to make a rational decision and avoid buying something you don't need. Unfortunately, if you're not buying frequently from a store, how can you make a difference between a true discounted price and a fake markdown? This is a very common practice in online stores. You will see the price of the item and a striked out price above it. Quickly looking at it, it's easy to assume, oh, I'm saving this much on the regular price, must be a good deal. In the marketing world, this is referred to as anchoring. You only present the customer with the information you want them to base their decision on. In this case, a fictive price you want the customer to use as a baseline. You can also find anchoring in those comparison tables where you see a list of features and the competitor's products. Keep in mind that these tables are made with the purpose of convincing you that the competitors have much less to offer, so you can be sure that most of the strengths of the competitors are not shown here. So how can we avoid falling for those fake markdowns and those misleading comparison tables? The answer is more simple than you would think. Let's say this is you, a typical customer looking to buy your first electric scooter. Being a first-time buyer, your knowledge is pretty limited about the subject. Excited to find something to buy, you go online and click on the first product that looks interesting. You see a price, maybe a discount, incredible figures of performance, customer reviews. Everything points towards this scooter being a great purchase. All the information you just saw is the information marketers want you to know. With this visualization, it's easy to see how your knowledge is anchored into the limits defined by marketers. You only know what they want you to know about the product they're trying to sell. If you want to avoid an impulse purchase, you need to realize there's much more information available. Then you simply need to expand your circle of knowledge and get rid of the anchor marketers attached to you. Practically, it means comparing different products from different brands and doing the comparison yourself based on your needs. If we go back to the electric scooter example from earlier, this is how I would go about avoiding the anchoring tactic. I would pull out a notebook or a Google Doc and write down exactly what my needs are for this scooter. The autonomy, the weather, the weight, and very important, budget a price. I would look at my bank account and figure out how much I can really afford right now with the money that I have. No credit cards, no loans. This list of features and requirements then becomes my own personal anchor. You can see why this can quickly become very useful. Now that I am anchored to my needs, when I start shopping and I come across this amazing scooter that has 50 kilometers autonomy and costs $999, I'm much less likely to be influenced by their marketing strategies since I know I only need 20 kilometers. Try to apply a strategy like this the next time you make a one-time purchase and see if it makes a difference. I'm sure it will. Now that we know how to avoid falling for scarcity and anchoring, we're in a much better position to stop buying things we don't need. Unfortunately, marketers are not the only ones influencing our spending habits. Subscribe to my channel to learn more and watch my next video to discover who's also influencing what you buy.